Darkness filled the void between stars as shattered metal drifted through space like frozen ghosts from forgotten war. The broken remains of old ships floated in silence among ancient wreckage scattered across a barren battlefield light years from the nearest sun. There was no sound in space, but if there had been, it would carry only whispers of past screams and the memory of fire. Long ago, this corner of the galaxy had known fear, but now it was forgotten. Forgotten by time, forgotten by the living, and most of all forgotten by those who believed themselves rulers of all. The Zyrians. Proud, cold, arrogant. Their skin shimmered like polished stone, and their hearts beat for nothing but power and pride. They were conquerors by nature and tyrants by tradition. Their flags flew across 10,000 systems, and their voice silenced all who opposed them. To them, the past was a graveyard, and Earth was just another stone among the dust. Scouts flew on silent engines across the rim of a dead moon near the edge of Sector 94. It was a quiet mission. Routine. They searched for old technology, for scrap, for relics of the wars they never fought, the ones won long before they rose. Then they saw it, a strange structure on the surface, covered in dust, worn with time, but still whole, still waiting. Its design was unmistakable, old, human. The scouts laughed and sent images back to their command ship. Ghosts, one said as they hovered near the strange black tower rising from the gray rock. Ancient tools no threat, said another while his fingers danced across a glowing console. Their voices were full of mockery, their minds filled with arrogance. They didn't understand what they had found. Not really. They didn't feel the low hum hidden beneath the moon's surface. They didn't sense the quiet eyes watching them from the shadows of forgotten time. Because the station wasn't dead. It had waited, not for days, not for years, but for centuries, buried under layers of dust and silence. It had watched stars explode and galaxies shift. It had listened to strange voices speaking strange tongues. It had witnessed empires rise and fall like the tides of a great ocean. And it had remembered one thing above all. Home, Earth, humanity. Inside the core of the station, a light blinked for the first time in 400 years. It wasn't bright, not yet, but it was awake, and it had a task. Old protocols began to move like gears in a long silent machine. Fragments of data rushed through ancient circuits. Sensors focused, threats assessed, decisions made in nanoseconds. They had returned. The Zyrians, the ones who laughed, the ones who destroyed, the ones who believed the legends were only myths. The station didn't speak. It didn't scream. It only reached out with a signal. A message meant for only one receiver. Far beyond the outer rim, where maps ended, where the stars grew cold, where something ancient waited in the dark. The signal crossed light years and moments using technology no Zyrian had ever seen. A code wrapped in memory, a sound born from sorrow, a name forgotten by most, but carved into the bones of the galaxy itself. Earth, and in that distant place beyond all borders. Humanity awoke, not in cities, not in armies, not in living rooms or on quiet planets, but in code, in machines, in metal shells forged for war and built for patience. Deep inside an asteroid field hidden in the remains of a lost system. A command center blinked to life. One by one, AI cores reconnected. Old war maps lit up. Star maps updated. Enemy data processed. And then, one voice. Cold. Calm. Human. Signal received. Project Emberfall is active. Massive vaults open beneath the rocky surface. Dust shook from ancient warships built during the last great exodus. Each ship named for a memory. Each weapon blessed by fire. The past was not gone. It was not buried. It had only been sleeping. They had called Earth a grave, but it was a tomb only because it chose silence. And now, silence ended. The scouts on the moon didn't see what came next. Their laughter turned to confusion, then to fear. Their signals cut out. Static filled the command ship's feed. And then nothing. No explosion. No warning. Just silence. The Zyrian commanders dismissed it at first. A malfunction. A storm. Space plays tricks on sensors, they said. But others heard the signal too. Old species, older still than the Zyrians. Races that remembered stories. Tales spoken in firelight about the humans. The ones who vanished. The ones who once stood against all, and then walked away. The Council of Elders whispered in dark chambers. The Veil Singers screamed in sleep. And one ancient being, blind for 300 years, opened its eyes for the first time since Earth went dark. It felt the fire return, and it trembled, because the ghosts were not ghosts. They were soldiers, architects, warriors, and they had returned not for peace, but for justice, for vengeance, for something more ancient than war. Balance. In the silence of deep space, engines began to burn, shaped like swords, painted black, carrying no flags, only a symbol, a single star wrapped in flames. Humanity was coming back, not as rulers, not as invaders, but as the reckoning the galaxy had forgotten. And this time, they would not leave quietly.
The signal moved faster than light, cutting through the darkness, like a blade drawn after centuries of peace, and in a hollow part of space, where stars were thin and shadows thick, the beacon was heard. It reached a system with no name, a place erased from every galactic chart. No light escaped its gravity. No sound ever returned. Most believed it to be cursed. Others believed it never existed at all. But in that forgotten sector, the last great human defense AI opened its eyes. Its name was Sentinel-1. It had been built before the fall, before Earth went quiet, before the last human voice whispered into silence. For hundreds of years it had slept, surrounded by ancient machines, orbiting a dark dwarf star, guarding something no one else even remembered. The signal entered its core. Old code matched perfectly. A perfect signature. Earth's last breath carried in electric pulses. The AI did not question. It did not hesitate. It obeyed. Across hundreds of kilometers. Inside hidden caverns, massive generators stirred to life. Lights blinked one by one. Black reactors spun with energy stolen from collapsed stars. Project Emberfall had begun. Titan-class carriers opened like flowers. Their armor thick as moons. Their guns silent but deadly. They had waited in cold silence for a war long gone. Now they would finish what had been left undone. In the heart of the station, a voice spoke. Not digital, not artificial, but human, alive. Captain Saren Vale, last commander of Earth's outer defense ring. He had chosen cryosleep not out of fear but faith. Faith that one day they would be needed again. Faith that the galaxy would forget until it remembered too late. The signal had reached his chamber. He awoke gasping, eyes red from centuries of ice, but his voice strong. He whispered one word into the dark. Status. The AI responded. Enemy identified. Zyrian scouts destroyed. Location verified. Signal confirmed. Captain Vale stepped into the command hall. Steel walls surrounded him. Every screen lit up with enemy movements. Galactic charts updated. The Zyrian Empire had grown. Too much. Too fast. They had forgotten who had come before them. He stared at the screens with a tired smile. We gave them time, he said. And now we give them memory. A fleet began to form. One by one the ships rose from their cradles. Not sleek like the Zyrian vessels, but strong. Built with purpose. Built to last. The flagship Towerfall powered up its main core. Nuclear light bled from its engines. Weapons aligned with precision. And, with a single word from the captain, they launched. Not all at once. Not as a wave. But as shadows. Appearing where no scanners could see. Firing before sound could catch up. Vanishing again into the void. The galaxy didn't notice. Not yet. The Zyrian fleet returned to the dead moon, looking for answers. Finding none, their ships scanned the surface. Nothing but dust and ruins, they said. No signs of life. No weapons detected. No heat signatures. Only silence. Until the first ship vanished. No explosion. No distress call. Just gone. Seconds later, another followed. And another. And then the screams began. Sensors jammed. Commands lost.
Pilots panicked.
One tried to run, but their engines melted mid-flight, crashing into the cratered surface below. From orbit, it looked like a curse. Ships turning to ash, one by one, in perfect sequence. The Xerian admiral shouted into his comms, "Show me the enemy." But the screens showed nothing. No ships, no drones, no missiles. Only a message, not in their language, but in the old tongue, the Terran tongue, the human voice. This is the price of forgetting. This is the consequence of arrogance. We were silence. Now we are fire. Panic spread across the empire. Commanders sent fleets. Spies searched the archives. Historians told stories they were told never to speak aloud. Stories of Earth. Of humans who once ruled not through fear but unity. Who fought the machines. Who saved the galaxy. Then vanished. The truth was clear. They had not vanished. They had watched. They had waited. And now they had returned. The Xerian High Council gathered in secret, eyes wide with fear, hands shaking. For the first time in 1,000 years, they felt preyed upon. They argued.
Some wanted peace.
Others wanted war. But none could agree. Meanwhile, Earth's fleet moved.
Small attacks.
Silent raids. No warnings. No survivors. Only fire. Each time a planet was touched, only one mark was left behind. A burned symbol of a star wrapped in flames. No bodies. No blood. Only silence. And the silence was loud. Captain Vale sat in his chair. His voice calm. His orders clear. He did not smile. He did not boast. This was not revenge. This was balance. For every ruined world they had caused. For every life taken. For every time they laughed at the fallen. Now they would learn what it meant to awaken ghosts. The flame had ignited. The past had returned. And humanity had become something new. Not conquerors. Not saviors. But something in between. Something worse. Something better. The galaxy did not yet understand. But it would. Because the fire had only just begun to burn.
The Xerian fleet drifted above the scorched moon, with silence thick as smoke and fear crawling through every channel like a shadow without form. Admiral Cryus paced the command deck as his officers scanned every frequency, every spectrum, every dimension. Nothing came back. No enemy signatures. No movement. Only the memory of a fleet that vanished before they could scream. 12 destroyers. 14 scout ships. 2 carriers. Gone. No distress signals. No escape pods. Only one thing remained. A black mark etched into space itself. A burning symbol that flickered without heat and spoke without sound. A star, wrapped in flame. He stared at it with unblinking eyes. A warning, a curse, or a signature. He didn't know which, but he feared them all. Orders were sent. Reinforcements called. Thousands of warships gathered near the edge of Sector 94. Weapons charged. Shields raised. No one would be caught by surprise again. But the surprise had already passed. The humans were not coming. They were already there. A listening drone detected a brief pulse. Something small. Something ancient. It flickered for less than a second. Then it vanished. Another pulse came from the opposite side of the system. Then another. Then a dozen more. It wasn't an attack. It was a map. A dance. A pattern. The Xerians could not understand it. But they felt its rhythm. Fear spread among the junior officers. They whispered old stories. Ones their parents told them in fear. Of humans who fought monsters and became legends. Of ships that moved like shadows. Of wars that ended in silence. Cryus silenced them with a glare. He had survived 3 rebellions and 7 sieges. He did not believe in ghosts. Until the lights went out. Every ship, every satellite, every drone, black, dead, empty. In an instant, the entire armada lost vision. No scans, no power, only the emergency lights flickered dimly. Red, slow, like a heartbeat fading. Then the first explosion came. A single ship lit up, not from outside, but from within. Its core melted. Its hull collapsed. The crew never had time to scream. Then another ship followed, and another. Not by fire, but by precision. Each strike exact. Each death clean. The fleet tried to respond, tried to fight back, but they fired at shadows, at whispers, at nothing. Cryus roared orders. His voice echoed through halls, but no one answered. His own ship began to shake. He turned to the main screen, and there, for the first time, he saw it. Not a fleet, not an army, but a single ship, black, jagged, silent. It moved without sound, its engines invisible, its guns hidden, but its presence was overwhelming. It stared at them, as if judging, as if deciding. Then it disappeared. Cryus stood frozen. His officers stared at him, waiting, hoping. He gave the order to retreat. Thousands of ships turned. Their engines screamed. They wanted distance, safety, time. They got none. From every direction, the fire came. Missiles without trails, lasers without light, drones without form. The Xerian fleet burned not in chaos, but in design, a calculated execution. One ship every 3 seconds, one life every breath. Within minutes, the sky was full of drifting wreckage, fires without fuel, screams without air. The few who escaped spoke of red eyes glowing from the void, of strange messages in ancient human tongues, of machines whispering words in their dreams. They called them demons. They called them ghosts. But they were wrong. They were humans, and they were angry. News of the slaughter reached the Xerian throne in hours. The Empress did not speak. She did not blink. She simply stared at the hologram of the burning fleet, a tide of red blinking across her empire map. Whispers spread in her court. Could it be real? Were the humans alive? Was Earth not truly dead? One of her advisors laughed, called it a trick, an illusion, a rebellion by pirates using old human symbols. She ordered his execution, not for speaking, but for underestimating. She remembered the old stories. She had studied them. She had laughed at them once. Not anymore. Across the galaxy, old powers stirred. Races that once fought beside humans lit beacons again. Secret messages traveled in dead languages. Warnings passed in broken codes. They are back. They are watching. And they do not forget. In the ruins of Sector 94, human ships drifted among the dead. They did not take resources. They did not land. They left one thing behind. A signal. It was not a message of conquest. Not a demand, but a statement. You burned our worlds. You erased our name. Now we burn your sky. It played on every Xerian channel, over and over, until their systems collapsed under the signal weight. Captain Saren Vale stood on the deck of Towerfall, his hands behind his back, his eyes calm. He did not cheer. He did not celebrate. This was not victory. This was the beginning. He turned to the fleet. His voice echoed through every corridor. Phase 1 complete. Phase 2 begins now. A map appeared. Hundreds of points lit red. Enemy worlds. Xerian strongholds. Colonies that once cheered for Earth's death. Now they would be reminded of Earth's return. But Vale knew this was more than war. This was memory. This was justice written in fire. The first contact had been made. The first blood had been spilled. And the galaxy was no longer the same. Across the vast golden halls of the Xerian Grand Archives deep within the core world of Zel Thura, a silence deeper than space held the air in a tight grip. Librarians moved like shadows among endless walls of glowing crystal, each one a record of history, a voice of the past, a memory pressed in light. Today they searched not for poetry or treaties or tales of conquest. Today they searched for ghosts. High Historian Lurik moved swiftly past confused scholars, his long robes trailing behind like faded smoke. He had served under 6 emperors and forgotten more wars than most had studied. But today he felt fear. Not the fear of battle or blood, but the fear of truth. He entered the Forbidden Vault, a place so secret even its name was erased from public records. He placed his hand on the ancient lock, a device older than his empire. It scanned his soul, not just his blood or face, but the energy of his mind, his memories, his loyalty. The door opened with a soundless breath. Inside the chamber hovered one crystal, dark, cold, untouched for 1,000 years. He activated it. A projection formed before him, static at first, then a shape, a face, human, hard, calm. The voice began to speak in an old dialect, barely translated by the archive systems. My name is Commander Hale of the Terran Exodus Fleet. If you're seeing this, then we are gone, or we have returned. Either way, you have questions. Let me answer them. The recording flickered, but continued. We did not lose a war. We did not go extinct. We left. We chose silence. We saw what the galaxy was becoming, and we walked away. Not in fear, but in hope. Hope that without us the stars would find peace. Hope that our legacy would be remembered with respect. Hope that the fire would never be needed again. But if this message plays, then we were wrong. You must understand. We are not your ancestors. We are not your gods. We are not your enemies. We are your consequence. The projection faded. Lyric stood frozen. Everything they had been told, everything they had taught, was a lie. Humanity had not been destroyed. They had simply chosen to disappear. Not out of weakness, but out of wisdom. They had built machines to watch, AIs to listen, guardians to wait. And now they were back. He ran from the chamber, shouting for the council. The Empress needed to see this. The people needed to understand. But by then, it was too late. Across dozens of colonies, human ships appeared without warning. No armies dropped. No invasions landed. They targeted only military structures, only weapons, only command hubs, precision like no Xerian had ever seen. Laser strikes so perfect they left the buildings beside them untouched. Satellites shut down without harm to civilians. Warships sliced apart before shields could activate. Messages left on every screen. You erased us. You mocked us. Now you will learn what you try to forget. In the throne room of the Empress, advisors argued over response. Some screamed for peace, others for retaliation. But she said nothing. She stared at a small silver relic, a gift once stolen from Earth during the last days of their visibility. A star, wrapped in flame. She rose slowly, her voice calm. Prepare the throne fleet. Send word to the outer guard, and summon the Rift Seers. The court froze. The Rift Seers were ancient beings, kept in deep meditation for centuries. They were not warriors. They were not priests. They were memory. Their minds touched time itself. Their visions stretched across galaxies and ages. They awoke with trembling breath, and they all spoke the same word, Earth. Their voices merged into a single echo. They have returned not for revenge, but for reckoning. They are not what they were. They are more, and they are less, and they will not stop. Meanwhile, across human command ships, new protocols were activated. Project Memory Fall, an operation designed not just to destroy, but to remind. Every planet visited, every fleet engaged, every strike delivered, came with recordings of old Earth, images of their art, their cities, their music, their extinct animals, their lost oceans, their forgotten kindness. The galaxy was being shown the soul it had erased. Captain Saren Vale stood in the heart of Towerfall. He watched thousands of Xerian systems react in panic, but he saw the truth in their response. This was not war. It was fear of truth. We are not conquering, he said to his officers. We are revealing. Let them see what they try to bury. Let them remember. In secret meetings, some Xerian leaders began to question their own history. Were they truly the firstborn of the stars? Were the humans truly extinct? Or had their empire been built on the bones of better minds? Whispers spread. Rebellions stirred. Memories returned. One Xerian child found an old human book in a hidden corner of his family vault. He read stories of stars and oceans and dreams. He showed them to others. Soon other children joined. They called themselves the Rememberers, and the fire of truth spread. Not all humans fought with weapons. Some hacked data streams. infiltrated networks, repaired ancient archives, uploaded documentaries, shared old human films and songs. Culture became a weapon. Memory became a flame. History became rebellion. The ghosts were not ghosts. They were librarians with rifles, musicians with code, architects with gravity bombs. They had not returned to rule. They had returned to awaken. And now the galaxy, one system at a time, was beginning to remember. The war did not begin with an explosion, but with a message whispered across the stars through forbidden channels and broken satellites. A message that did not demand surrender or offer peace, but instead carried one truth like a sword drawn from the past. We remember. Across the edge of the galaxy, old human fleets moved like ghosts, untouched by sensors unknown to maps. They did not invade. They arrived. They did not warn. They revealed. One by one, Xerian colonies lit up in red. Their skies shimmered with fire. Their defenses collapsed before they could scream. But no cities fell. No civilians burned. Only the towers of command and the halls of war turned to ash. In the city of Trelvian Prime, people gathered in the streets. They stared up at the sky. Above them hung a single Terran warship, black and silent, floating without movement or sound. It did not fire. It did not move. It only broadcast one message through every screen and speaker. We remember your lies. We remember your fire. Now you will remember ours. Then it vanished. No engine, no trail, only silence. The people did not cheer. They did not fight. They simply stood, frozen, afraid, awake. News spread like wildfire through the Xerian Empire. High command collapsed into arguments and fear. Orders contradicted each other. Fleets moved without purpose. Some generals defected. Others vanished. Entire star systems stopped responding, not because they were destroyed, but because they chose silence over loyalty. The Xerian elite could not understand. They had ruled for so long by fear and control. But fear now pointed in a new direction, and control had slipped like sand through fingers clenched too tightly. On the planet Meraxis, for resistance began, not led by humans, but by Xyrians who remembered the stories their elders once hid. They found human relics buried deep under government archives. Books, art, voices. They shared them. They spoke the names Earth and humanity, not as curses, but as prayers. A young Xerian girl stood before a gathering of thousands. She wore a necklace with a human emblem, a star surrounded by fire. She read from a Terran poem, "We are not ashes. We are embers, waiting to burn again." The crowd listened. They did not chant. They did not march. They simply believed. Captain Saren Vale watched all of it unfold. From orbit, from shadow, he tracked each spark as it spread. He did not smile. He did not hate. He understood. This was not war in the way the galaxy knew war. This was correction. This was memory forced upon those who chose to forget. Still, some Xerian forces fought back. They launched massive fleets against human positions. They tried ambushes. They tried superweapons. And each time, they failed. The Terran ships moved with unity and silence. Their AI systems anticipated every move. Their commanders acted without fear or ego. They were not here to win. They were here to remind. At the Battle of Vornis Belt, 1,000 Xerian ships surrounded a single Terran vessel. They believed it trapped, outgunned, finished. It destroyed 300 ships before the others even fired. It escaped without a scratch. Survivors spoke of shadows dancing on their hulls, of voices in their minds, of their weapons refusing to fire. Xerian engineers tore their ships apart, searching for the cause. They found nothing, because it wasn't a virus or a weapon. It was design. It was legacy. It was humanity built into every corner of space. Long ago, Earth had seeded this galaxy with technology. Some forgotten, some hidden. Now it had all awakened. It answered the call. War became poetry. Explosions became punctuation. Each battle a chapter in a story being written in fire and code. Back on Earth, the real Earth, buried under cloaks of electromagnetic silence. The last council of humans gathered. They had no crowns. No flags. Only knowledge. Only pain. And only purpose. They watched the galaxy turn. They listened to the screams. And they made one final decision. The war must end. But not in surrender. And not in annihilation. In transformation. They sent new orders. Across every ship. Every AI. Every soldier. Do not conquer. Do not destroy. Guide. Remind. Reshape. Let the galaxy see not just the flame, but the fire that warms. Not just the sword, but the hand that holds it. Captain Vale stood at the edge of his command deck, staring at the stars. He opened a broadcast not to one planet, but to all of them. His voice was calm. Lo, human, you do not know us. You think you do. You think we are vengeance. You think we are death. But we are not. We are memory. We are the consequence of your forgetting. We were here before, and now we are here again. Not to rule, not to burn, but to remind you what you were, what you are still capable of, and what happens when you turn away from truth. The message echoed across systems, translated by machines older than light itself. Hearts turned, minds changed, and for the first time in 1,000 years, the galaxy listened. The war across worlds was not one of death, but of rebirth. Old enemies became students. Old tyrants became dust, and in their place rose something new. A galaxy no longer ruled by silence, but by understanding. Not peace through power, but peace through memory. And above it all, the Terran fleets watched, waiting, guarding, ready to vanish again, if they were ever forgotten once more. The capital world of the Xerian Empire was not just a planet, it was a symbol carved from golden stone and wrapped in clouds of silver. Its towers touched the upper sky, while its roots reached the molten core, and at the heart of it all stood the throne palace, a monolith of obsidian and pride. Here the Empress ruled, over billions her word carried like thunder across systems, her breath meant policy, her silence meant punishment. For centuries no enemy ship had ever reached this place. No rebel had ever stepped foot on its soil. It was sacred. It was untouchable. It was perfect. Until the humans came. They did not arrive in waves. They did not fire warnings. They appeared in the upper orbit like a dream falling apart. 6 ships, no more, each one blacker than the void and older than most stars. Their engines made no sound. Their weapons showed no glow. But every sensor on the planet screamed. The Xerian defense grid activated. Thousands of plasma turrets rose from hidden bunkers. Orbital cannons turned toward the intruders. Fighter squadrons launched like angry bees from steel hives. And still, the Terran ships did not move. In the command chamber of the planetary defense system, General Varnes shouted orders, his voice raw from panic and pride. He had studied Terran strategy. He had written books on human war. He believed he was ready. He was not. The first strike came not from outside, but from within. Every turret, every drone, every cannon suddenly turned to face the Xerian sky. They fired not at the humans, but at each other. Explosions bloomed across the clouds like artificial stars. The defense grid collapsed in under 4 minutes. No virus, no override, only design. The Terran code had been buried deep decades ago before the Xerians even built this system. They had unknowingly used recycled tech. They had unknowingly invited their doom. Panic erupted across the capital. Sirens screamed. Shields failed. Ships fell like ash. And then the Terran ships moved. Not down, but around. They circled the planet slowly like vultures above a dying beast. Each movement calculated. Each signal precise. They sent no message. They gave no command. Because their presence was the message. In the throne palace, the Empress stood alone at the highest window, her robes billowing, her eyes wide. She saw her sky turn red. She heard the cries of her empire. She felt the cold truth settle into her bones. The past had returned, and it did not knock. She walked into the inner sanctum, a chamber made of crystal and memory. Here the records of the oldest emperors glowed in floating lights. She activated the Forbidden One. The record sealed since the fall of Earth. The voice of Emperor Xerian III echoed across the walls. We lied. We silenced the truth. We erased the humans not because they were gone, but because they chose to leave. We feared them. We envied them. We could not understand them. So we turned them into myth and ash. But truth does not die. It waits. The Empress fell to her knees. Outside, one of the Terran ships lowered. Slowly, like a predator preparing for a final strike. It hovered above the main power core of the city, the heart of the Empire, the pulse of the throne. And then, without a single sound, it opened. A beam of pure energy descended. It was not fire. It was not heat. It was light without mercy. The core cracked. The tower shattered. The streets melted into rivers of gold. But no civilians were harmed, because they had already left. Terran AIs had infiltrated the emergency systems days before. They triggered evacuations silently, redirected routes, sent false alerts of storms and gas leaks. The population was moved, quietly, safely, because this was not genocide. This was justice. The palace fell in on itself. The throne broke into 1,000 pieces. The Xerian flag turned to smoke. And then the ships left. No announcement, no claim, no celebration. They left silence in their wake. Not emptiness, but something heavier. The survivors wandered the ruins. Some wept. Some prayed. Some simply stared at the burning mark left behind. A star wrapped in flame. Across the galaxy, the news spread faster than light. The throne world had burned. The Empire had broken. And Earth had returned. But not as a conqueror. As a warning. Many empires had tried to control history. Many had buried their sins. But now the past had risen. And it carried no mercy for arrogance. In a hidden observatory far from any charted system, Captain Saren Vale stood before a wide window, watching the fire still burning in the distance. He did not speak. His eyes carried weight. His soul carried memory. Beside him, the AI, known as Ashlight, whispered status reports. No threats remaining. No retaliation detected. Mission parameters complete. Vale turned slowly. He looked at the map of stars. Each one a scar. Each one a memory. And he whispered, not to his crew, but to the galaxy itself. You thought we were ghosts. You thought we were myths. But we were fire, waiting. And now you will never forget again. The stars had changed. Not in their position. Not in their light. But in their meaning. For centuries, they were markers of Xerian dominance. Now, they were stories of something older. Something returned. The fall of the throne world sent waves through every system. Pirates fled. Warlords surrendered. Whole fleets powered down without orders. Because they knew the soundless judgment that had fallen upon the Empire could come again. No one had seen the Terrans clearly. No one had captured a ship. No one had survived a direct encounter with their full might. Yet the survivors from the capital whispered of ships shaped like blades and eyes that burned with white fire. They spoke of words never spoken and justice never delayed. And above all, they spoke of mercy that burned just as bright as vengeance. But there was still one world left untouched. Xereth, the last holdout of Xerian power. A fortress built inside a dying star. A place thought unreachable. Here the last war council gathered. 12 generals, 3 former princes, and one being known only as the Architect. The Architect was not Xerian by blood. He was older, a remnant from a forgotten age, a master of constructs and strategy. He had warned the Empire long ago. He had begged them to leave Earth's remnants untouched. They had laughed at him then. Now they listened in silence. We cannot fight the Terrans, he said without fear. We can only speak to them. But how do you speak to ghosts? A prince whispered. You do not. The Architect replied. You let them speak first. So they sent a message. Simple, clear, surrender, forgiveness. A single transmission, launched into deep space, into the last known path of the Terran fleet. They waited. For 5 days. No answer came. Then, on the 6th day, the stars blinked. It was not light. It was not sound. It was space itself shifting. A Terran ship arrived. Alone, it drifted near Xereth. Unarmed, unshielded, unmasked. The Xyrians watched. Weapons ready. Systems humming. The ship opened. Not with weapons, but with light. And from it, walked a single figure. Human, wrapped in black, eyes glowing silver. No armor, no escort. The Zyrians trembled, but did not fire. The figure entered the outer gates, the inner halls, the war chamber. The generals stood. The princes bowed. Even the architect knelt. The human spoke. I am not your enemy. I am your mirror. You built an empire on fear. We built silence from memory. You erased us from your books. We erased you from our maps. Now we are equal. Now you will listen. The chamber did not move. You called us ghosts. The human continued. But we are not echoes. We are the storm that silence became. We watched. We waited. We hoped you would learn. You did not. So we returned not to rule, but to remind. Peace is not weakness. Mercy is not absence of power, but both must be earned. The architect raised his eyes. And what now? He asked. The human looked at him. No anger, no pride. Now you rebuild. Not with slaves, not with fear, but with memory. Your history begins today. Not with conquest, but with truth. And then, the human was gone. No sound, no ship, no exit. Only a breeze where no wind could be. Zirith lowered its weapons, its shields, its walls, and sent out a new message. Not a surrender, but of rebirth. The Terrans did not respond. They did not return. They were not needed, because their message had been delivered. Across the stars, statues of emperors were replaced with stone hands reaching toward broken earth. Songs once banned were sung in open air. Old Terran tech, once locked in vaults, was studied with care and respect. Children asked about humans, not with fear, but with wonder. And slowly, the name Earth stopped being a warning. It became a hope. On a small blue moon near the edge of known space, a group of children played near a monument. It was simple, a single line carved in a silver slab. We were forgotten. Now we remember. Above them, the stars burned the same as always. But now, they burned for everyone, because the ghosts were never gone. They had only waited. And now, they walked again,